I am very excited to be here today with having you as an audience and also knowing that some colleagues of mine and family back home will be watching this presentation too. So welcome to all of you. My name, I need to take this one. My name is Marijke Volgering and I am the project manager and coordinator of the Pure team at the University of Groningen. I work at the university library and in the Department of Development and Innovation. And I think this is a very great place to work because we like to trigger change at our department and because we are working with information systems like Pure. And in this presentation, I'd like to share my thoughts on the information that I think we need from Pure and what we did to improve the quality of the data in Pure. So, but first, a short overview of how I structured my presentation. So I'll start with an introduction of the University of Groningen and how we implemented Pure at our university. And then I will show what we did to improve the data quality in Pure. And then some visualizations to that we use to measure the data entry progress in Pure. And at last, I'll show you what reports we created to facilitate in the research assessment cycle in the Netherlands. So this is to quickly show, well, you know where we are now, of course, but in this picture you can also see where I come from and where you can find the University of Groningen up there. And here you can see from the perspective of the Netherlands, we are on top of the map. That's why we say gaat niets boven Groningen, which means nothing tops Groningen. And on the world map, okay, we might need another slogan, but... So this is our beautiful university, and you may see the academy building to the right. Our university was founded over 400 years ago in 1614. The academy building was already there, but actually not this one. It has been rebuilt 3 times. And the current building is from 1909 only. So then, yes, we are a top 100 university. And from our keynote speaker, I learned that, well, maybe we're also just an average university after all. But so we're, for example, in the top 100 of the Times Higher Education ranking. And here's just to indicate that we have a broad variety of studies at our university. So I think about 2/3 of the students and research that we have are in the medical sciences and in science and engineering. But as you can see, there's lots of other studies as well. And then just to give an impression on the scale of the university, we have about 3,500 academic staff, 300 of full professors, part of them. And currently you have over 2,000 PhD candidates and quite a lot of them from international, so that's 800. And so we have a bit of an idea what kind of university we are. Then have a look at Pure at our university. So we have implemented Pure in 2014. And actually curious to know, are there also people, institutes here that are still implementing Pure? Maybe you can raise hands. So that's just 2, 3. Yeah, so most of you actually have implemented already. Good to know. Let's see further. So we use Pure as our current research information system and also as our repository. And we have implemented the research portal in 2015. And now, shortly ahead on the topic of data quality, the introduction of this portal actually made a huge difference in the usage of Pure. Yeah, because when you make this data visible, it's also visible to the people, to the research themselves, what is missing or what may be incorrect. And we saw quite some actions after that. So just an example to see how our portal looks now. And here we look at our youngest Nobel Prize winner. So that's on top, always nice to see. And you can see that this portal has been integrated in our CMS, in the website of the university. So here you see the research part, but you can also click through to, for example, education or other parts that you want to see. And quickly jump here to the publications. So you can see that for this Ben Veringa, that's an impressive amount, of course. Then some interesting fact of our implementation is that we managed to have the University of Groningen and the University Medical Center Groningen together in one pure instance. So we're providing access to both researchers from both institutes. Well, this may not be that easy to achieve, but we are actually very proud to have done that, which of course makes reporting much easier and the cooperation in general. So finally, some short facts and figures. Here's the counts of our pure contents. So over 200,000 research outputs, and more recent are the activities, the research activities that we keep, and press media and so on. And I think these were figures from September, but data sets are actually going strong now, so we may be already 330 or something like that. That's something that we're active with now. What's also interesting to see, so here is the amount of research outputs is increasing every year with about 10,000 items. And what's impressive, I think, too, is the downloads per month. This is over 200,000. So over 2017, the year 2017, we had almost 3 million downloads from Pure. And I think quite a lot of them were from dissertations. Then finally, something on our Pure organization. So we have a managing board for research output to steer further developments with Pure. For example, when we start to use new or other modules, or when we want to make ORCIDs visible on our website, as we currently have a custom portal, we need to make sure what we want to implement there and not. And we have Pure coordinators at the faculties, so they are the first point of contact for our researchers to get any help, and also they have responsibility for the data quality, which I will get to later. And finally, we have a Pure support team and Pure validation team in the university library. Then let's have a look at data quality. So first, what is actually the aim when we're talking data quality? I think we can consider data of high quality when it is, well, so to say, fit for its intended uses in operations, decision making, and planning. And what does that mean for us, the intended uses? So we want to show all our research outputs on our portal, and we want to be able to report on them. And what's important there is that the outputs that we show are actually ours, so that they belong to our people or to our organization. So we need to trust that authors, affiliations, and output types, to put it very shortly, that those are correct. So I think that's what we aim for. What should we do to get the data quality right? Well, this may seem very obvious, but of course it starts with getting good data in. So that also means making it as easy as possible to get those data in Pure. And that's why we recommend to our researchers to use the online sources that are there, because we see that much richer metadata comes in when we use those. So if it's not needed to manually put data in, then this is something that helps, of course. And we also put, or from files, sure. And we also put some effort for the manual input in our submission guides to make sure that the researchers can find where they actually need to register their output in Pure. As something else, about manual input, we give the opportunity to what we call deposit your article in Pure. This is actually for what we call green open access. And I found this nice symbol for depositing at the Oxford University website, so I hope they appreciate I promote it here, because I think it shows nicely what it's about. Here you may see how it looks in our institute. So this is a place where people can just give a very short description or the title of the, the journal name that the article is put into, maybe some comments, and then the most important here is the attachment of the final author version of the article. So to get to make it really easy for people to get the data in, and library takes care of the rest. So also when the publisher version will appear, the library takes care of putting that into Pure. Yes, this is the cake that we had because of all our electronic versions of dissertations were complete in Pure. This was back in 2014. So in the year before, in 2013, it became mandatory, as decided by the board of the university, to put all these dissertations in Pure, and our university library takes care of this. So this is another way to get good quality of data when you can manage to input these data for the researchers. And what I mentioned before, a second thing to do is to show the data. So when you show the data, it will lead to improvements by the data owners. And so I would recommend to show the data that you have in Pure as many places as possible. So on the research portal, of course, maybe department websites. And also an interesting thing that you may consider is to have it as input for performance interviews. So we have this at the faculties. Some faculties decided that they would only consider data that has been put into Pure as counting, so publications that have been put in there. Not at every place it's possible to organize it like this, but we see that where this is asked, of course, the quality in Pure and, well, quantity and quality goes up. And finally, the CV. And when people find that they can get their data also out of Pure, then it's another way for them that it's becoming useful to have the right data in Pure, and you will get them to check and update their information. So then something still very, very valuable, the process to get good quality of data is to do validations. At the University of Groningen, we have the library to validate the data, and that's both the metadata and, of course, also the full text, if it can be shown on the website already, if it's open or not, and if necessary, an embargo is placed. And then the faculty checks the administrative metadata, and that's meaning the affiliations, so where if the correct department is indicated, and the classification, which means that the type of publication, if it's peer-reviewed or not, etc. Another thing that the Pure validation team does at our place is keeping the Pure metadata up to date, and that also means doing deduplications when necessary for all of these content types. I think the first three are really done regularly, and persons and organizations, well, it's a hurdle. It's really lots of effort to keep them in place. So it's we are not really trying to keep that clean for now because it's not doable. I think I didn't mention in here, but we also delete unused content. I think that's something that most of you might know already as well. So then something about matching. So we can wonder why we actually get so many duplicates in Pure. And obviously this is all about matching, or actually not matching correctly. So when journals have just a slightly different name in one or the other source, then we will get duplicates in Pure. And the same with, persons that would have the same name but are are created again as external persons. So this gives a lots of work. So what can we do about that? I skipped this part with Jubilan, what can possibly go wrong, so about matching. What can we do? So initially at implementation, prepare all the data that you want to get in as good as possible. So what we use there is Crossref to enrich the current metadata. I think that is still giving good opportunities if you need to upload the data in Pure for the first time. So Crossref also gives a possibility to weight or to give a score of the data that you want to check. So for example, when checking on a title or on the author name, or I think it's possible to even check more things currently, like DOIS or something like that. And then if the score is high enough, you can consider to update your data to enrich the metadata before you get it into Pure. We also used our own matching rules and applied manual matching of organizations. So for example, with the organization tree that we had in our at our university, we made a sheet in Excel where we matched them with organizational names as they were known in Web of Science to make sure that we get a good match there. So this, you can do it only once. I think I saw already a remark on Twitter today from someone who said, oh, can't we just start all over again? I sometimes wish we could, but at some point you need to move on. And so what can we do for future? And one of the things that would help a lot if we could use IDs to match on instead of names. I think also quite obvious, but it isn't so obvious actually to get there. What we did now is with ORCID, we show that on our portal, and then we ask our research also to update it in Pure. But still, we need to have the whole cycle complete, of course, that this ORCID, when that publication is created, will also contain the ORCID, and the ORCID will go into Pure. Sorry. And then it can be used there for matching. Something that we would like to have, and what we, I think is a JIRA issue that is standing out, is for internal organizations to also have a possibility to add an alias to that. Because if you have that, then you can also use that alias for matching. And something about plausibility checks. So once your data is in there, you can consider what is actually to be checked further. So in what cases would it be not likely that the data is correct? It's just some logical thoughts, actually. Here I will show some cases where we thought, in these cases, the match on author doesn't seem right. So for example, in our university, when we saw support staff with over 25 publications, then probably the person that was mentioned in there is not correct. And this one, when the age of the author at the publication date was, for example, below 10 years or over 100 years. Also something where we would consider to remove the author from the publication. And well, finally, a publication with lots of authors, which is not within one of the big faculties, because at the other faculties this is not usual, and then it would also not possibly be a match. Finally, some regular checks that we make to make sure that we don't leave any information from online sources not used. So we call this trawl actions. This is the ID, so that's after most of the information has been put into Pure, that we do this action to get everything that has been left. For example, in Web of Science, so in the last 3 years, we looked at 2 years back what publications were left. And then you see that for this year, 2018, we look back to 2016, and we still find 7% of the publications that are not in Pure. And I have to tell here, it's not the aim to get to 0% because we won't want publications from, for example, other institutes at Groningen, like Hanze or the Martini Hospital. And so there are some things that we like to move out, to leave out. I can show you that when, this is the way that we are searching then. So we just put Groningen in as the organizational name. It is on top of everything, so you can get more publications here than the ones that are really linked to the University of Groningen. We plan to do the same with Scopus 2 and thought we could also learn from the workshop that Heidi from Copenhagen University showed in the morning, but then actually we learned that they will use the new functionality to update from online sources, which will become available in 5.13 or has just become available. So that's interesting for us too, I guess. Then something interesting to see how far all the institutes are with input of the data in Pure. So we thought, what do these numbers of outputs that we have in Pure actually mean? Is almost all of the data in or not? How can we know that? And so the idea was to look at the created date of the publications and then compare to previous years. So I will take you along in this graph. This one just shows the publications of the year 2014. And it shows them from the January 2014 until 3 years later. And so to make this graph, we counted publications with a certain created date until a certain end of month. So in the first month, you see just what has been created until January, and so building up to what has been put in at the end of December 2016. And now this is a base for the next one. Here you will see the, well, kind of the same data now for 2015, but the interesting thing is that the period that is reported upon for 2015 will go from January 2015 until 2017. So again, a 3-year period, but starting in the year that the publication are about. And so you can actually compare from the start in the year itself and the 2 years after how the input is going. And so we built this also until 2018. So you can see I have entered the data until what is August or September. And what can we actually learn from this? Well, at first, you can see that for the first year that we were putting things in, 2014, which was our implementation year, that it was a much less steep curve of that we got these publications in. And also the moment that we had almost everything in was much later than the years after. So let's say that with 9,000 publications, we can consider that most of the publications are in. You see that we reached that moment for the publication year 2015 almost after 3 years. And for the other years, that becomes earlier. And I think one way to use this is something that you can easily keep up to date, is that you can, in an early stage, already see when the progress is not as you would expect. And then it's possible to dive into the organizations beneath to see like where is it behind, and then you can take some further actions to that. So for example, here I have one of the institutes, and it's nice to see some peaks in here. You can see that there well, maybe you can not see that directly, but here and here are actually, these moments are actually at the same time, but as you know, the period has been shifted. So this just means that here was a visitation for research, and at that moment for the current year and also the years back, lots of publications have been entered because of that. So they kind of did the delay that had been there they repaired that, and that you can learn from this graph. So I think it makes visible quickly what happens in terms of data entry in Pure. Then I have another graph, what also may need some explanation. So here you can see a stacked diagram. So the colors are about different publication years, and we just see a period of, what is it in here? I think for 2 years that are shown here. And if you look, for example, in August 2018, then you see that most of the research output that has been entered is about publication year 2018, and still a bit about 2017 and earlier. And I think you can also see quite soon that for a publication year before it's finished, it will take a bit longer than the publication year itself. So, for example, the red one is the 2017 output. Well, most of it is in there in December 2017, but it will take just a few months extra to be complete. Yeah, what we further can learn here, this is more useful for the validation team, as they will need to do a lot of work when there's peaks in data entry. So at first we saw peaks in, for example, February and October, and not so much in December. I think the peaks are actually lowering, so that's a good thing for us as well. But yeah, you can take advantage of this, that you in some periods have extra persons working at the validations. So that's about some graphs that we use. And now I'd like to have a look at how we use Pure for research quality assessment. And I'm quickly checking. Yes, so we will first have a look what actually is asked by our Dutch government, our Dutch frameworks, when it comes to research assessment. So we're looking then at two things. That one is the SEP, the Standard Evaluation Protocol, which is indicated by the Association of Universities in the Netherlands, the VSNU. And we have QIAS, which are key figures for university research or university onderzoek. That's by the abbreviation. And the first one, SEP, that is used for the 6-yearly visitations done as indicated by the VSNU, and the QIAS are used every year actually to report to the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science. So what are the requirements when we're looking at that? So one part is the research output, and the other one is concerning FTEs and funding. So when we're looking at research output, in the visitation tables for SEP, it's been asked to report on these main categories of research output, which all have their own definitions. And we can't just get this out of Pure like this, and that's why we looked how we could actually make our reporting some easier. And so the idea was that we could actually deduct our SEP categories from 3 fields that are in Pure, and that is the Pure type, the publication category, and if it's peer-reviewed or not. And so this we looked for SEP. Actually for QIAS we could do the same thing, only QIAS has a more granular definitions, but still we could deduct them from the same fields that are in Pure. Well, that seems like a nice solution, but then still we got into all different interpretations at the institutes, because before we actually are working to get all this information from Pure, every institute had been reporting on this for years already and had their own ideas about what belongs where. So we got some discussions on, for example, patents. Are they always professional, for professional audience, or can they be academic too? We talked about special issues and contribution to journal, if they would be refereed articles or if they would belong to the other research output. So it wasn't easy to find really one mapping for all of our institutes. And then when we talked to Manja about developing this mapping for us in Pure, we decided at some point that every institute should be able to change their mapping up to their own use. I think actually that we have made quite some progress here, and most of us do have, well, really similar mappings, but still there's a possibility to make some specific choices. So what we do now, this is an example of part of our output, how that is actually mapped. So for example, this type in Pure, the book report has a subtype template which is called book. And when it has the publication category academic, then it will get SEP output type books. And just like that, when publication category is professional, then it will go to professional publications. So we actually enrich the data that we have in Pure with this new information on the SEP or QoS output type. Well, this we don't need to look in detail, but the way that we get it into Pure is through an XML file. So here you see the translation of some of the rules that I just showed in the Excel sheet. This can be imported then into Pure. And the result is what you can see in the template for a research output. Normally, you may recognize the publication category and peer-reviewed fields. And then you can see also the SEP output type and the QoS output type that are deducted from that. We actually made these fields invisible to the researchers, as they are not really concerned with this and may also just only get questions out of that. But what we do like about it is that we have new fields available for reporting, and that was actually the aim of this exercise. And also we have defined a SEP QoS module in which you can, in one overview, see the numbers for the last 6 years as it is needed for that 6-year cycle. And also nice about this is that you can just click on one of the figures in here. So for example, these books in 2018. And then you will get to the list of research output with this selection. So the period in this case is 2018, obviously, and the SEP output type is books. And also good to mention that we add some default filters, so only looking at outputs with internal affiliation and with a published state. So let's see if I forget something. Yeah, I think this is main thing about research output. And then for the second part, FTEs and funding, we did a similar exercise. So here's the two tables that we got as input. We need to report on numbers of scientific staff, postdocs, etc. And then also divided these numbers upon the different funding origins. And here we see that we defined an import file to update these FTEs and funding in Pure. For this this input, we have actually two ways. So you can do it with a sheet, and there's also a possibility to update at an individual level. So here you may see a person has got an extra menu item for SEP QoS, and there it's possible to have for a certain affiliation for a certain position to fill in the FTEs and then specified per funding type over the years what it should be. So yeah, that's dependent also on what institute you are. If for the smaller institute, this may be the better way to maintain, and for the bigger ones, obviously Excel sheet. I have to admit that we are not using this at our university, so I don't have concrete examples with numbers here. And that has to do with how our figures in our university are maintained. So we don't have that direct linking to the funding in our HR system. So as we can't get that information from that directly, we have not implemented it like this yet. And finally, then the research, the results in the SAP-QuIOS module. So here you can also see same presentation of the figures where you can click to the details. Yeah, that's for the two different tables, of course. And then I'll get to the summary. So very quickly, to improve data quality, of course, facilitate to getting the good data in. Show these data many places as possible. Use IDs where possible, and also I hope Elsevier can help us to get them matched. Validate and check. And yeah, for checking, I would say think a little bit out of the box sometimes, what you can do more to find out if it's likely that the match is correct or not. Yeah, there's ways to keep track of data entry progress. We find that very useful. And lastly, yeah, there's ways that you can enrich your reporting data to ease essential reports, and yeah, which will be very much appreciated in the faculties, because it takes always lots of preparations for such research assessment cycles, and this can help a lot.